Avengers Age of Ultron is garbage, folks.
Is it an alligator or a crocodile? I don't know the difference, and at this point I'm too afraid to ask.
Look at that. That is a werewolf, folks.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Den of Geek presents Marvel Standom Live, where each week we give you the deepest possible dives on all the goings on in the MCU, Marvel Comics, and beyond. But you know that because we have just been through 9 episodes of She-Hulk together, Werewolf by Night, plus God knows what else. I am your host, Mike Cicchini, the editor-in-chief at denofgeek.com. And with me for all time and always, I've got Den of Geek TV editor Alec Bajalid and Den of Geek News and Features editor Kirsten Howard. And it's finally here, folks. The She-Hulk finale, bringing with it vindication for Alec, satisfaction of sorts for myself, and I don't know, maybe Kirsty wasn't praying for death this week. So anyway, why don't we just get this started? Kirsty, tell everybody what went down.
It's going to be another long one, so strap in. In the finale of Marvel's She-Hulk, Jen is barred from practicing law and fitted with an inhibitor after hulking out at the gala in last week's show. So Nikki and Pug infiltrate Intelligentsia, and they find out that Todd is behind the quest to humiliate Jen and acquire her blood. However, when Jen arrives at Emil's retreat to find Todd and his internet trolls celebrating their victory, things start to get messy. Hulk arrives suddenly from Sakaar. Titania smashes onto the scene for reasons, and Abomination and Hulk start fighting. Jen has had enough. She breaks through the fourth wall and into production on the show, where she has a strong word with the writers' room and demands to see Kevin Feige, who turns out to be an AI working hard on the MCU algorithm and formula. A meta conversation ensues, and Jen convinces Kevin to redo the finale with less spectacle and more legal justice. Daredevil also returns and has a lovely family barbecue with Jen. And in a post-credits scene, Wong nabs Emil from prison, where he has returned after violating his parole.
It was an eventful episode, and it was also a damn good episode. At least I think so. Most of my Twitter feed seems to think so. Very curious to see what the folks here in the chat think. Kirsty, why don't we start with you, because you had the hardest time with She-Hulk out of the gate, and I got to back you up. You weren't wrong to. I was never quite as hard on this show as you were. Although, well, a couple episodes really did rub me the wrong way, but for the most part, I think you were kind of the show's harshest critic. So, want to know if this finale set things right for you.
First of all, I don't feel like I was the show's harshest critic in the world.
No, just here.
This room, 100%. I did not get on with this show at all. There were things that I felt like it had the building blocks of something really good, but it wasn't, for me, leaning hard enough into the possibility of what it could be. And we know what happens when somebody goes for the meta thing. And She-Hulk was just pulling back on that just way too much for me to really get involved with it. And then the sitcom element of it, the legal sitcom, wasn't quite working for me either. So I did struggle with it. However, these last 2 episodes have been really entertaining. So has it saved the whole show? I don't think so, but I've certainly enjoyed these 2. And as we've talked about in the past, a lot of our favorite sitcoms, the first seasons are objectively not great. And it takes a while for them to find the pace of the jokes and to get their callbacks and their running gags up and running, as it were, and finding that formula that works for them. And towards the end here, it has felt like they are getting there. So a good episode, But I'm not sure, like, overall it's worked for me. It's not all is forgiven or anything.
Alec, I'm going to give you a chance to say I told you so.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm going to need you to find Dashboard's Confessionals Vindicated and then just play it at full blast throughout everything I'm saying. No. You could take I'll pay for the rights out of my paycheck. I was vindicated. I like this finale a lot because it doesn't necessarily have to vindicate the series, I don't think. Because for the most part, this has been what you expect out of a half-hour sitcom, a half-hour legal sitcom. Some episodes are pretty funny. Some episodes drag a little bit. Some are perfectly average, and you just kind of have it on in the background as you go along your day. So I don't think it was necessarily the show needed to be vindicated in that sense, in like a quality sense. But I do feel like the She-Hulk writers' room kind of, if not vindicated itself, like really made its own case for the show at the end here. I have no way of knowing if like the meta tangent they go on with Robot Kevin is indicative of anything that actually happened behind the scenes with this show. Like if they actually had conversations with Marvel higher ups of like, no, we'd like it to be more of like a just kind of a weekly sitcom, just like half hour, no frills. Let's bring in the jokes, break a fourth wall here. And then the Marvel higher ups are like, well, no, we need some more lore in here. We'd like it to resemble some of the other shows more. I don't know if that's an actual thing that happened behind the scenes, but the way this episode ends, it makes me feel like the writer's room was arguing with somebody, even if it was just like among themselves, and they won out in the end. And by the end of this first season, the show was what they want it to be. So I'm happy for them. I'm happy for the show, and I'm happy for us.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Alec, because in the interviews before She-Hulk got started, the writers were saying that they were arguing with Kevin Feige quite a lot, and that he had perhaps told them to rein in on the meta stuff, that they were doing too much. Having seen this finale, I don't know if that was a joke or that really happened, but the fact that some of the footage we see in this finale is some of the first footage we ever saw of She-Hulk kind of tells me that they had planned this finale to go this way for a while, for her to go behind the scenes and for it to get this meta. So I don't know whether they were playing the long game here with an in-joke, but I'm questioning my own sanity on it, really. I need to know the truth.
It's to the show's credit that it makes you think for even a moment that like Kevin Feige could possibly ever lose an argument at Marvel. You know what I mean? Because like there's just no way. Like whatever got itself to screen did so with his blessing. But in the moment, you're like, oh no, are they going to get in trouble with Kevin? Like it's to their credit that I feel like they kind of pull that sense of subversiveness off.
Yeah, and subversive is the right word, and it's where I've been waiting for the meta humor in this show to go pretty much from the jump. I mean, because one of the most famous She-Hulk covers of all time is, the sensational She-Hulk #1 by John Byrne from 1987 or 1988. And it's Jen on the cover, holding up a copy of her original comic, The Savage She-Hulk #1, which did not sell and was not a long-lasting or beloved book. And it's her holding that up and saying, look, if you don't buy my book this time, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to rip up all your X-Men. That wasn't something that was done. Like the idea that Marvel Comics was taking a shot at what was at the time far and away their best-selling, most critically acclaimed book, at the height of its like critical popularity for sure. Like that was a big deal. And I felt that much of the humor in She-Hulk throughout the season was a little toothless, to be honest. The jokes were not connecting for me in general. I do love that they were sending up, the usual internet idiots who are upset about anything that does not center, straight white men. Like that was always great, but like there was never enough they weren't digging the knife in deep enough on anything, like not
Mm.
on the superhero genre, not on the idiots that they wanted to target. The jokes in this episode, aside from being genuinely funny, like I laughed multiple times in this episode and last week, but the jokes had teeth. I mean, the Kevin stuff, this is the first time that the almighty wisdom of Marvel Studios has been questioned on screen by a Disney product. Like, that reminded me of what Looney Tunes used to do back in the day, you know, with Warner Brothers stuff, or even, no joke, folks, Tiny Toon Adventures in the late 80s and early 90s would like brutally lampoon other Warner Brothers stuff and studio execs and things like that. And there was some of that happening here, and I really, really dug it. So big win all around. And just to bring this back to something we discussed a few weeks ago when we were talking about shows our moms liked, the way they went into the writer's room and the way that they went after not just the producers, but the producer was very reminiscent of Moonlighting back in the 80s. And I think Moonlighting in a lot of ways kind of should have been the blueprint for this show. And they really nailed it here. And it's been a long time since I've seen a major property take swings like this. And I'm so happy they did. And I'm so happy it worked. And it really changed my perspective on most of the season.
I'll say the Simpsons often needles Fox quite a lot
Yes.
over the years too. So
That's true, but I haven't watched an episode of The Simpsons in about 20 years because watching The Simpsons is kind of like akin to watching a loved one die slowly of some like, you know, horrible disease. Like that's been like the decline in the quality of humor on The Simpsons. I do hope that they are that they're giving the Murdoch family exactly what they deserve.
I don't watch The Simpsons either, but I edit our Simpsons reviews. And in one of the most recent episodes, there's a newspaper with a headline of like, Disney unacquires Fox, recognizes huge mistake.
All right, I'll take it. But yeah, like where are my Tiny Toons fans at? Like those Tiny Toons and Animaniacs were just like,
I was gonna say, I can do Animaniacs. I remember that.
Yeah. New seasons of Animaniacs are pretty good for that too. Anyway, this is becoming a tangent. I apologize. The fact that the fourth wall break was an actual physical thing that took place was spectacular. And I see Flaccid House here says, I genuinely thought I'd sat on the remote during that scene. And I kind of blinked as well because I tend to watch these shows for work, which means I'm watching them first thing in the morning, you know, before my caffeine has fully kicked in. And I was like, oh man, these apps are so glitchy all the time. Like, and it took me a second. So did anybody else have that reaction?
oh yeah.
It happened so quickly that I think I just started going with it. For
Yeah.
some reason, the part that I was so taken by was the fact that to get to like Avengers Campus or whatever, to get to Marvel Studios, you have to access the Marvel Assembled.
The NDA in the Marvel Studios lobby. Let me tell you, folks, like for anybody in media, like the folks on this show and anybody in media who may be watching, the NDAs that we get with our Marvel screeners, like that was not all that far off from reality.
Then you
No,
usually
that's-
have the guards called on you.
It's like when watching this screener, you must make sure no other reflective surfaces are around in which other people might accidentally catch a glimpse of the episode, you know, reflected in a shiny surface under penalty of death.
And it's all for naught because I think this one leaked.
Really?
Plot did. Yeah, I saw on Twitter last night that it leaked, and I read like the first scene of it, and I didn't read beyond that, but the first scene was totally right.
Like anytime something like that happens, it's obviously an inside job. It's not like, you know, like the Black Adam premiere was in New York City last night. And of course, everybody immediately went online and spoiled the post-credit scene. But at least you understand like how something like that happens. Like nobody's going to keep their mouth shut there. But like when an actual episode leaks, there's only a few options there. You know what I mean? Like you got to be, I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting us in the weeds. I apologize.
I don't know where else we can go in this episode aside from the weeds.
That's a very good point. So let's stay in the weeds, folks, because Kevin is one of the most amazing television visuals of the year. And Kirsty, you caught a particular detail about that I didn't even notice at first.
Oh yeah, because the design on the top is it's like the baseball cap by US. Really tickled me. I love it, and I know that Alec is a big fan of the baseball cap espionage. That I feel like has always been a nod to Feige, but this is just it's very it's not a subtext. Like
Oh
it's
my
right.
God. I have sorry, I have important breaking baseball cap news.
Oh my God.
Because I was watching Atlanta, season 4 of Atlanta, and at one point, one of the characters, Paperboy, puts on a nondescript hat so he's not recognized somewhere. And somebody's like, "Oh, it's you, Paperboy." He's like, "How did you know?" And he's like, "Nobody just wears hats with nothing on them." Like, I know you're a celebrity if you just throw on a hat that doesn't have any graphic design on it.
Every single shot they could have taken it themselves, I think they did pretty effectively here. I guess the only thing that, is untrue is that they actually listened to a creative in this case, but that again, we shall leave that debate up to the internet.
You mentioned earlier in that Hallmark She-Hulk comic that she references the X-Men, like you read this or I'll take away your X-Men comics. She mentions X-Men again here. We asked Kevin, what about the X-Men? And then obviously Kevin cannot answer that, unfortunately.
Yeah, which is exactly the kind of answer that you actually get from Kevin Feige in interviews anyway.
Yeah.
I'm stealing one of Kirsty's jokes here. I apologize. Is if Kevin was actually, if there was like a magic 8-ball that was giving like vague answers, like that would have.
It's like magic 8-ball or like fortune cookie, it really doesn't, it's an answer that comes out and it just doesn't mean anything. It's just full media training. Like,
yeah.
You're lucky if you get any kind of quote out of them.
Answer unclear. Ask again later. Lee just reminded me about the VFX workers comment too. And just like everything, and by doing this, they take some of that edge out of it. They let the air out of that balloon just a little bit, like just enough, and that's tough to do. And respect. You still got to treat your VFX workers better though. On that note, is it my imagination or did She-Hulk actually look great in this episode?
She did look great, but if we assume that this is some of the first footage they put together, some of the first footage we saw, it should look better, right? If this was the stuff that was up front. In terms of the VFX joke, that's actually one of the only ones that didn't work for me, because I just felt like they were making fun of the situation. It's like, I bet the people that worked themselves to the bone on this stuff don't find it as amusing as you.
Fair enough, but it does take stones to even bring that up, given the firestorm that was just ignited a few weeks ago.
Stones, yes, but like debatably good stones or bad stones.
Oh, all right, yeah. I leave that debate up to the internet.
I will say, I'll usually watch this show with in every show with closed captioning on. Closed captioning spoiled the joke. I don't know if you guys knew this, but when She-Hulk asks to see Kevin, when the writers respond, it says K.E.E.I.N. And the closing credits spoil Wong's upcoming appearance in like 5 seconds. So yeah, there's just spoilers all over this episode.
Look, we got to find something to criticize in this otherwise terrific 30 minutes of TV. Last week was fantastic. This week was excellent. This is exactly the show that I hoped we were getting from the minute it was announced, from the minute we saw the first trailer. They absolutely gave it to us. Even bringing Daredevil back here with the full acknowledgement that it was not for any actual storytelling reasons was just, it's great.
A woman has needs, Mike.
See Daredevil in the sunshine. I think that's nice. it was really nice to see them just being a couple there at the cookout, even though the whole thing gave me Fast and Furious movie vibes. I don't know whether either of you guys have seen the Fast and Furious movies, but they basically all end up with a family cookout and saying the word family a lot. And I don't know, it just reminded me of that bit, but in a good way.
Her family was great in this episode too. Like the family jokes all worked. I loved cousin Larry as her dad here. Like the stuff with the hose was fantastic. It's terrific.
It's Leftover star Mark Lynn Baker.
He was in the Leftovers. That's right.
Playing Mark Lynn Baker.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so crazy. He
what
will
was going
always
on
be
in that
cousin
show?
Larry to people of a certain age.
I could just start talking about the Leftovers for another hour now, but yeah, the joke is that all of the cast of Perfect Strangers departed, but he only pretended to, and he became like an international fugitive because he lied about disappearing.
I think I need to watch The Leftovers.
Yeah, clearly that's like the most intriguing thing I've heard about the Leftovers yet. Like when the Leftovers came out, I was like, you know what? Like I wasn't in a great place, like mentally or emotionally.
Oh yeah, don't.
And like, when, I mean, to be fair,
Absolutely
when am I, right? But like, I never really am. But I was like, I don't know if I can handle this show right now. But now suddenly you make it sound like a,
Remember earlier in the day when I said, if our guest pulls out, we're going to have to just go off on a tangent, just talk about good stuff we've watched recently that isn't anything to do with Marvel. And the prophecy is coming true because now we're on The Leftovers.
Talk a lot about. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is why She-Hulk is good. It makes you talk about, good TV shows.
Alec, I'm on board with you now. Like I fought you in the early episodes of the season, but you got me now. But our brilliant producer, Andrew Halley, is reminding us that like the awesomeness in this episode came right out of the gate with the homage to the classic TV series Open. And folks, it is dead on. Like it is dead on how perfect that is. My favorite part might be Mark Ruffalo's perm, but like honestly, like exactly what this show would have looked like if the planned She-Hulk series had ever, there was plans for a She-Hulk spinoff in the late 80s, from the Incredible Hulk TV series. This was amazing. Alec, is this even just like beyond you? You're way too young for this, right?
Way too young. I mean, I'm aware of it through just general watching other stuff. Like I think it was on a talking point, and I love the 80s or 70s maybe. I'm also I'm familiar with these so sad. Like David Banner's always so sad, and every episode ends with him just like walking off with sad piano music.
Yes. What's up, Code Monkey? As someone that has fond memories as a kid in the UK watching The Incredible Hulk with my family, that was such a nostalgia trip and done perfectly. Yes. Folks, what you have to understand is there was a time where the Incredible Hulk was one of the two most important characters in the entire Marvel library. In the 70s and 80s, it was Spider-Man and the Hulk, and it was nobody else. And then maybe Ben Grimm, the Thing, was like a distant third. But these were the characters that Marvel was exploiting in merchandise, on television, in cartoons, like you name it. I remember having Hulk soap as a kid. I remember begging my mom for a deck of Hulk playing cards at the supermarket. Hulksploitation was a thing. And a lot of it was because this show was a sensation. It was a massive, massive hit. At a time when being a hit on TV, for comparison, the Amazing Spider-Man TV series, which I love, but was nowhere near as good as The Incredible Hulk. What was cancellation numbers for that show was more than what The Walking Dead and House of the Dragon pull every week right now. So when The Incredible Hulk was a big deal, it was a big deal. Today, it would be almost like a prestige TV high concept pitch. For anybody who hasn't seen it, I think it's only streaming on Tubi right now, which is awesome, by the way. But unfortunately, they're owned by Fox. So, make whatever more moral compromises you have to make. Watch the 2-hour pilot movie and watch like the first actual episode of season 1. And it's the kind of thing that like a cable exec would like walk into a room and be like, okay, we're going to do something like a very serious, grounded take on the Incredible Hulk. And like, there's not going to be any like crazy monsters, and it's going to be like The Fugitive. And you know what? It's really good. It's really, really good. And Bill Bixby was amazing as like the saddest David Banner ever. Don't ask me why they couldn't call him Bruce on the show. I'm sure there's some weirdness there, but anyway, whatever. That is my Incredible Hulk.
I don't know. Isn't it because they said that Bruce, the name was too gay? I don't think I'm making this up, but do not come at me. Just don't message me.
You know what? That is true.
I did hear that the execs or whatever was like, Bruce is too gay, quote unquote, a name. So that's why his name was changed to David, I believe. I mean, we're talking, really problematic and bigoted sort of era for TV. So
45 years ago, we've come a long way, folks.
You would hope so.
We've come a long way. Don't let the fascists turn the clock back. Make sure you vote in November, boys and girls and everybody else. I'm not messing around here. Anyway, go watch the Incredible Hulk TV series. Seriously, educate yourselves. It's so good. It's so good. If you don't like it, let me know. But it's really cool. And it's like a comfort watch for people of a certain age like myself. Andrew was asking about the thing that the entire internet is talking about, which is the fact that Hulk has a son. Were you aware of Scar, Alec, before today?
No, he looks so funny to me. He looks so much like a son. Like, I don't know how else to explain it other than just to say, like, he absolutely looks like someone who you would pat on the shoulder, like, this is my son.
On the internet where they say, this is my large son.
Yeah, my large adult son.
Yes.
So Scar comes out of what was the World War Hulk comics event, which is genuinely good. I mean, that was elements of that, of course, made its way into Thor Ragnarok, and of course we're back on Sakaar and blah 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 blah. Why this kid appears to be 17 years old or whatever here is another debate. I just have to figure that the time jump had something to do with it between Infinity War and Endgame. And also I'll let some theory of relativity like space travel stuff factor into it as well. But yeah, so Scar is now a canonical part of the MCU, considering that they're assembling the Young Avengers slowly but surely across all of these shows. I have to wonder if maybe he'll take the place of Hulkling, because Hulkling in the comics is a Skrull. Maybe they're just going to kind of take a shortcut here with their Young Avengers assembly. I don't know. I would have liked a little bit more on this instead of it just being kind of like another gag they threw in there, but whatever. I was in such a good mood after this episode. I was like, great. Like, they could have thrown anything at me there. I would have been fine with it.
When she was chatting with Kevin and he was saying like, we were going to introduce, and I was like, assumed, Scar or whatever was the end of that sentence. And I was like, oh, amazing. They're just going to cut that out. They're not going to have it be about continuing the Hulk MCU future or whatever. They're just going to just pass it right by. That's what a bold choice. And then at the end, he sort of walked in, this is my son, Scars. I almost was like, I just think I would prefer it if he hadn't done that. He looks really goofy. I don't know.
It did leak early on with She-Hulk that they were going to build towards World War Hulk with this show. And I got to confess, I did not believe it. I dismissed, look, folks, I'm very skeptical of a lot of the rumor mongering that goes on the internet. We try not to engage in too much of it at Den of Geek. And I was pretty skeptical of those World War Hulk rumors, and I was wrong. I was dead wrong. So, the thing with World War Hulk, it's a great comic, by the way. Do seek it out. It's an awesome, awesome comic story. It's what leads into a terrific Hercules comic as well. Like, it's just really good stuff for the MCU in general. But I wish I hope they don't go like full on like jokey with it. You know what I mean? Like I know that Marvel has their house style and everything, but like, it's a really cool, like, fantasy epic like Conan the Barbarian / John Carter, but with Hulk in space. And I'd love to see them really lean into that rather than try and duplicate, the Thor Ragnarok tone, for example. It's just me though.
I did suspect there would be World War Hulk, because isn't Universal's tie or restriction or rights on making Hulk movies up in 2023? So the timing works out, as far as I know. This is maybe another situation where I'm absolutely talking out of my arse. And I know there have been 9 or 10 of them so far on this stream, and I apologize profusely.
No, Kirsty, see, I've seen this as you just like dropping knowledge on us. Like,
but sometimes it turns out to just be nonsense.
No, don't undercut yourself.
As long as you add in that qualifier, just like, I think we're good.
So what do we think, folks? Season 2, yay or nay? Like, do we want this? Like, I think it's time, but I'm going to start with you again, Kirsty, because again, you were the harshest critic. I want to know if you're down for more, if you are not professionally obligated to watch the season.
Well, if you'd asked me even 3 weeks ago, do I want a season 2 of She-Hulk? The answer would have been, please no. Please don't do that. But these last 2 episodes have been really strong, and you know what? Why not? Why not? I'm ready to be hurt again, Mike.
Alec, I know your answer, but I want you to articulate it because you are such an articulate, brilliant person, and because, folks, Alec is our TV editor at Den of Geek for a reason. Member of the Television Critics Association in good standing. Brilliant analysis on everything on the TV landscape. You don't just come to denofgeek.com for his Marvel takes. Read everything Alec does, please.
I would just like to note that I was not introduced in that way.
Yeah, what the hell is going on here?
I guess we'll ask Kirsty. They've probably got something negative to say. Anyway, Alec, you beautiful man, you gorgeous specimen. Tell us, will you?
Because you know why I'm doing this? Because for 9 weeks, Alec has had to sit here while I ramble about comics, and the guy is gonna quit if I don't build him up a little bit.
I mean, look, my ego is almost uniquely fragile. Like, that is, we all know this beyond a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. I'm excited for a season 2, particularly. I mean, if I try and think of something insightful or pretty to say as you set up, I think it's telling that the name of this episode is "Whose show is this?" And that works on quite a few levels, because it's a question that Jen basically asks herself during it, but it also plays out in the end as almost like this behind the scenes struggle between art and commerce, or what have you. And I think, if not art, at least what the writers want to do is the one that won out. And I think we're going to see whatever it is that the writers want to do for season 2. I feel like they're going to be able to do it. And I feel like it's going to be just a series of goofy half-hour sitcom episodes that address legal issues within the Marvel universe. And it's what I've always wanted. And it's what we got for like more than half of the episodes this year. And I think it's going to continue on in season 2.
Yes to all of this. Like, look, even when I was down on this show, I wanted a second season because I wanted it to find its feet and become the show that we hoped that it would be. I don't even care about a big overarching story, although it does really appear that like Hulk stuff is going to be a major focus of the MCU for a while, which I'm kind of down with because it lets them do some weird deep cut stuff. But I'm with you. Like, more Pug, please. Like, more like legal shenanigans. And I don't even care. I don't even care if there's like a big connecting story in season 2. Like, I think now that they've established the concept, now that they've been confident enough to really go meta with it, I think they can go just like full on, procedural / sitcom in season 2, and it'll be great. I understand why there were some, why this season had to make some of the choices that it did now. So whatever, nice job. They made a fan out of me in the end. I'm glad to hear it. So folks, the Marvel Standom schedule is going to be a little irregular the next few weeks. but we will be around. We might do a spooky episode, maybe before Halloween. I don't know. Of course, we'll be back in time for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Keep an eye on our YouTube page, youtube.com/DenofGeekUS, and on all our social channels, because we will have some Marvel Standom supplemental episodes that you can watch and also listen to as podcasts. I've got some great interviews with the writers of the current Captain America comics, where we dive deep on both Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers. We've got Zeb Wells coming up. We've got Cody Ziegler coming up. We've got Jed McKay talking about his brilliant, like best ever Moon Knight comics run and some Werewolf by Night stuff. So there'll be like little bits of Marvel Standom here and there in the meantime. Make sure you are reading denofgeek.com/Marvel. Kirsten Howard, our very own Kirsten Howard, is our Marvel editor, as well as our Den of Geek News and Features editor. All the good stuff you're reading on Den of Geek, that's about the MCU and Marvel Comics and all this cool stuff. If you like it, Kirsty was in charge of it. If you don't like it, I probably made them do it. So I
just feel like you're trying to make up for the fact that I was slighted by Alex's introduction now, and I'm just not buying it.
I'm not buying it. I'm in trouble, folks. This is it. Like I'm probably going to be down a news and features editor after this episode, and I'll be looking. I know when I'm in trouble. I've worked with Kirsty long enough to know when they're mad at me. So. But for real, I think that's it for this week's episode. Thank you all so much for watching, sticking with us all through this. Make sure you are following us on Twitter and Instagram. We are Marvel Standom there. Give those a follow. Tell us what you want to see in upcoming episodes. And you know what? If you have any ideas for themes for some kind of interim episodes we can do between now and Black Panther Wakanda Forever and Secret Invasion and everything else coming up, we want to hear about it. Let us know. Don't forget, we also have a DC show, so check out DC Standom when you can on all major podcast platforms. And if you came in late to this episode, you'll be able to watch this entire episode on denofgeek.com or at our YouTube home. Once again, that is Den of Geek US. Yes, I know we are trying to change it. Don't forget to check out past episodes there as well, and also wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you to Andrew Halley, the best producer, the most patient producer, and just, and the most overworked producer, at least this week for sure. Thanks to Den of Geek social media coordinator Lee Parham for keeping everyone in line in the comments. Make sure you are following us on TikTok at Den of Geek TV. Lee does really great work over there, folks. Special shout out Michael R. He makes the podcast version of this show all it can be. And most of all, thank you all for watching, listening, following, and subscribing. This has been Marvel Standom on the Den of Geek Network. Until next time, remember, folks, we stand together.
Finally, the last She-Hulk live stream is done. Oh, but what do we do about the post-credit scene? I don't know. These are so hard to come up with every time. But what would be good for the She-Hulk finale? Maybe I could mask out and replace Hulk's son with someone else. Like Bullet Bill. The defining moment was definitely that Disney lot fourth wall break. Maybe I could do something like that. Maybe this will do. I guess I can just put the end screen up. Show's over, folks. That's all. Close the tab. Go on.